Good morning, and today we are going to learn about Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was president around the time of the Civil War in the United States, and he is the president that freed the slaves. So we wanted to go ahead and look at Abraham Lincoln now. And next month we'll have President's Day, and we'll be looking at some of the other presidents at that time. So we'll go ahead and cover Abraham Lincoln today. So this is a National Geographic's Kids, Abraham Lincoln. I like this book because it has some really good pictures. So here's a picture of Abraham Lincoln. A much-loved president. Who is on the penny and the $5 bill? It's Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. Lincoln is an important man in America's history. And this is a statue of him that's at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. A country boy. Lincoln was born in a one-room log cabin in Kentucky on February 12, 1809. He grew up in Indiana. Lincoln read a lot of books. He wanted to go to school, but there was too much work to do on his family's farm. He chopped down trees, built fences, and plowed the land. He grew strong and very tall. Lincoln was kind and a good storyteller. In his own words, leave nothing for tomorrow which can be done today. So that's a little quote. Here's a picture of him reading by the fire. And here's a picture of the family home in Kentucky, just a little log cabin. Growing up, all his life, Lincoln taught himself how to do things. He learned how to read and write, tell stories, and give speeches. Lincoln learned how to fix machines. He taught himself how to pilot a riverboat and how to be a soldier. He even studied law and became a lawyer, all on his own. So that's a fact. Lincoln was an inventor. He had an idea for a machine to help ships float over sandbars. And over here's a picture of the law offices where he worked. And a lawyer is a person who provides advice about the law. In his time, in the 1800s, many things were different from how they are today. Money. A pair of shoes cost $1. A quart of milk cost 10 cents. That doesn't sound like much, but dollars and dimes were worth a lot more back then. And remember, that's why the $40,000 reward for Harriet Tubman was really a lot of money back then. Toys in their free time, children played hopscotch and leapfrog. They also played with marbles, dolls, and toy trains. So here's some marbles, here's a toy train, here's hopscotch, and school. Back then, not all children went to school. Those who did learned together in a one-room schoolhouse. So all the grades would have been together here in this one room. Transportation. People walked and traveled by horse-drawn carriages. Trains were used for long trips. There were no cars or airplanes. So here's a horse-drawn carriage. And U.S. events. California became the 31st state in 1850. The New York Times newspaper started in 1851. And it is still there today. Becoming a leader. In 1842, Lincoln married Mary Todd. They had 4 sons named Robert, Eddie, Willie, and Tad. And this is a painting of the Lincolns with 3 of their sons, Willie, Robert, and Tad. Lincoln was a good lawyer. People trusted him to make important decisions. So Lincoln became a politician. Lincoln held 2 jobs as a politician for the state of Illinois. Then, in 1860, he ran for president. Lincoln won. He became the 16th president of the United States. So a politician is a person who helps run a town, city, state, or country. And that's a fact. Mary Todd was one of 15 children in her family. And this is Mary Todd right here. So 9 awesome facts. Number 1, 11-year-old Grace Bedell wrote Lincoln a letter suggesting he grow a beard, and he did. Number 2, the Lincoln penny has looked the same since 1909, with Lincoln on the heads side. Number 3, Lincoln made Thanksgiving a national holiday in 1863. Magazine editor Sarah Josepha Hale suggested the idea to Lincoln. Number 4, Lincoln read the Bible often but did not belong to any church. Number 5, Lincoln owned horses, cats, dogs, and a turkey. Once he saved his dog from drowning in a frozen river. Number 6, some presidents used speechwriters, but Lincoln wrote all his own speeches. Number 7, Lincoln's stepmother was an important person in his life. She encouraged him to read and learn. Number 8, Mary Todd Lincoln was more than a foot shorter than her husband. And number 9, Lincoln kept important papers in his stovepipe hat. This kept his head warm and his papers dry on rainy days. Slavery. During Lincoln's time, some white people owned black slaves. The first slaves were brought to America from Africa. They were stolen from their families and sold to people who used them to do work. Slaves did not get paid and had to obey their owners. Slaves did not have any rights. They were often treated very badly. Many people were slaves because their parents were slaves. Those who tried to escape were often caught. Most slaves would never be free. So here's a poster, says $100 reward for one of the slaves. And up here, in his own words, I want every man to have the chance, and I believe a black man is entitled to it, in which he can better his condition. People all over the country disagreed about slavery. Many people in the South wanted slaves to work on their large farms. Most people in the North worked in cities and thought slavery was wrong. Lincoln was against slavery and told people it needed to end. So here's an illustration of slaves working on a southern farm, and it shows the hard work needed to grow and harvest crops. So you can see they're all working in the field. And down here, that's a fact. Slaves used music for comfort and support. They sang about freedom, hard work, and their beliefs. And this is a drawing of New York City in the 1800s, and it shows the bustling city life. And here, in his own words, whenever I hear anyone arguing for slavery, I feel a strong impulse to see it tried on him personally. So in other words, these people that want slavery, he wonders if they would want it if it were them. So here's the Civil War. In 1861, 11 southern states broke away from the United States, which was also called the Union. These states did not want to be a part of the Union because most of the Union wanted slavery to end. So here you can see these are the southern states or the slave states. And here we are, Texas was a part of that. The country began a long and bloody civil war. So, and here are the northern states that were against it. A civil war is a war between people of the same country. And the Union is the United States, but only northern states during the Civil War. So we'll talk a little more about Texas history, but Texas was a republic, had just joined the United States, then joined the Confederacy, and then back to the United States after the Civil War. Families disagreed and broke apart. Sometimes brothers fought on opposite sides. Some slaves escaped to the north to fight for freedom. Many people on both sides died. In 1863, Lincoln freed slaves in 10 states, but the war continued. Months later, he gave his most famous speech, the Gettysburg Address. So in his own words, I say, try. If we never try, we shall never succeed. The Gettysburg Address. Abraham Lincoln stood on the battlefield where thousands had died to end slavery. He said that the country began with the idea that all people should be free. People listened to Lincoln's powerful words. In 1865, after many more battles, the South surrendered. The North had won. The long, terrible war was over. So here's Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg, and surrender means to give up. And in his own words, 407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. And that was the beginning of his Gettysburg Address. Lincoln's last days. After the war, some Southerners were still angry. They didn't want Lincoln as president. A few were so angry they wanted to assassinate Lincoln. On April 14th, 1865, Lincoln went to the theater. During the play, he was shot by a man named John Wilkes Booth. Lincoln died the next day. Booth got away, but was found and killed for his crime. Americans were sad to have lost Lincoln, their leader. And so here's a picture of where he was sitting, and this would be John Wilkes Booth. And here's President Lincoln and Mary Todd Lincoln. And assassinate means to murder an important person. Lincoln's life. Lincoln left behind a free country. The Union had been saved. Over time, Lincoln had become one of the most loved of all American presidents. Each year, many people visit the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., and the Lincoln Presidential Library in Springfield, Illinois. When Barack Obama was sworn in as America's first black president, he used the same Bible that Lincoln used. So here's the Lincoln Memorial, and here's a fact. The 36 columns of the Lincoln Memorial represent each state in the Union at the time of Lincoln's death. And down here we have a timeline. So Lincoln was born in 1809 in Kentucky to Thomas and Nancy Lincoln. In 1816, they moved to Indiana. In 1830, they moved to Illinois. In 1834, he was elected to the Illinois state legislature. In 1842, he married Mary Todd. In 1846, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. In 1860, he was elected President of the United States. In 1863, he freed the slaves in 10 states and gave the Gettysburg Address. In 1864, he was elected president for a second time. And in 1865, he died in Washington, D.C. on April 15th. So that is the end of the book. And we are going to do an activity about Abraham Lincoln today. And it's a little booklet. So I will see you next time. Bye-bye.